What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of our All Things Liverpool podcast. It's me, of course, Anish Dogra, back at it again with a whole host of topics to talk about with Liverpool, with what's happened over the last week or so. So lots of entertaining things, both on and off the pitch, for good or for bad. But it's given us lots of stuff to talk about, and as we all love football, we also love to talk about it, and understand what's going on with our clubs and in the Premier League. So let's get right into it, and we'll start with the Tottenham game. So a really, really great game of football. Arguably, probably the best game of the season if you're a neutral. Even if you were a Liverpool or Tottenham fan, you probably you would agree as well that it was a really, really good game. And I thought going into the game, had we had Van Dijk and who else were we missing? Henderson, Thiago, and Fabinho, who were all ruled out with COVID. Then I would have been feeling all right. This will be straightforward, 3 points. No problems. Tottenham, they're low on confidence. They've, all right, they got Conte and they got a bit of a bounce, but the team that we have and the momentum that we were on, we're basically, second to Man City, quite literally and figuratively. But given that we had those injuries and those problems, it gave Tottenham a much better chance of beating us. And the fact that they were off for two or 3 weeks, however long they were out for, due to the COVID cases that they had, which forced them to miss a couple of games, and then they had to the Leicester game was called off for them last time out because of Leicester's COVID cases. So for them, it was almost the perfect match in many ways. Coming up against a defense where you're pairing up against Konate and Joel Matip. Both, of course, are fine centre backs, very, very good. But when you take Van Dijk out of the team, it's like it's like when Sergio Ramos was at the peak of his game, and Real Madrid were without him in some games. It's just a massive drop off defensively, because not only is he one of the best defenders in the world, his leadership qualities are unquestionable. When it's time to push up the back four, when it's time to drop off, covering, clearing, blocking, everything that Van Dijk brings. We all know how good he is, and we all know why he's one of the best in the world. So not having him in that back four to marshal the defense definitely played into Tottenham's advantage, and that's quite literally how the first goal came about. Harry Kane finally ending his goal drought. That was his first goal, I think, since October, mid October, and his first in the league at home of the season. So obviously very good for him. It was a fantastic finish, and of course we'll get on to him a bit later later on. But if Van Dijk was there, if you look at where the goal came from, it came on our left hand side of the defense, their right hand side of their attack. And whilst Konate is a good defender, he's still young, he's still a little bit naive, and he has improved a lot in the last few games, and I definitely think he's settling in now at Liverpool. But if Van Dijk's there, that's it, no problem. He muscles Kane either out for a corner, or he just muscles him off the ball and gets a goal kick. So definitely played into Tottenham's advantage, not having someone like him in defense. And then of course for us going in the midfield, when you're taking out Thiago, Fabinho, and Henderson, who have been in that team for the last 5 or 6 weeks now, and you see the results how corresponded. Prior to that Tottenham game, I think we were on a 5 or 6 match winning run in the league, and like 8 in all comps. So from going from that to Naby Keita, who just came back from injury, and of course hasn't lived up to the expectations. James Milner, who's basically a granddad, and Tyler Morton, who's a kid. And don't get me wrong, all three very, very good footballers, but when you're putting that midfield in for the first time against still a good Tottenham team, okay, like I said earlier, they've not been the best this season, and they're low on confidence, but they've still got quality individuals. And up against Ndombele, Harry Winks, I thought had a really good game. It kind of showed the drop off between those two and the three that we had in there for for many reasons. But with that said, going in being 1-0 down, I thought up front we were still fantastic. Salah, Mane, Jota, still a big threat from minute 1 to 90. Robertson and Trent, as you saw at the bottom, we'll talk about them more in a bit more detail later on. But what talent they are from the fullbacks, the quality of crosses, the delivery, and how they help the attack so much was brilliant. And we deservedly got back into the game. Fantastic header from Diogo Jota. I think that's his 10th league goal of the season. So what a player he's been. I think there's more and more comparisons to the goal return he's had compared to Salah, and I think they are founded, because Jota's numbers would be much greater if he didn't miss 3 or 4 months off last season. I think he was out from mid-December, didn't come back until March or something. So having if he wasn't out, he would have easily finished on 15, 16 league goals last season. He's already on 10. Probably will finish on 20 this season. And then when Salah and Mane go, well, maybe if they will go again, something we'll talk about a bit later. But when they do go to AFCON, as things stand, they will still go. Jota's form will be very, very important for us in that period. So brilliant goal, great cross from Robbo, and a very good header. But of course, probably the biggest talking point in that match, well, 3 talking points really, were the red card that Robbo got later on in the game and the 2 incidents in the first half. So let's talk about the Harry Kane one. And it just highlights the incompetence of these referees again. So when VAR came in, I think it was in the beginning of I think it was the 1920 season. So we're in the third season of VAR now, and I said at the time that it would highlight one of 2 things. It would either highlight that the referees needed help, because referees, it is a tough job for them. They have to make a split decision there and then within 2 or 3 seconds, and more often than not, they do get it right pre-VAR. And I thought, okay, this coming in will be fantastic. They'll have people in their ear giving them, more advice, and and those people will have different angles, more replays to make the right decision. And then even then, they got the on-screen on-screen camera to help them out, even if the people in Stockley Park can't make the decision for them. And it just highlights the incompetence of the referees to constantly getting it wrong. Every major decision, for the last, up until probably the last 3 or 4 weeks, I thought they've been pretty good in terms of their use of VAR, being more lenient. Last season we had so many problems with goals, whether if it hits your hand accidentally, it'll be ruled out, which is ridiculous. The offside decisions were an absolute joke. If your armpit hair was ahead of the defender, that would constitute as being offside. So they fixed that, and they did really well with it. And in terms of the softness of decisions, this season compared to last is much, much better. Last season it was so easy to get penalties, free kicks, and it was so frustrating to see players, even I'll even admit, even our players were going down so easily, but they knew they could, because they get a free kick or a pen. So this season, the referees definitely are swaying away from that and letting the game flow, and it's made things much, much better. The games this season have arguably the best I think it's been in a long, long time, and maybe the best that I've ever seen this season. But in the last few weeks, they've now gone to a point where they've overdone it. They're now going back to the standard of tackling and fouls from the 90s and early 2000s, where things like that were acceptable back then, but they aren't now. And Harry Kane, he simply can't do that. He's flying in at 100 miles an hour, and if Robertson doesn't jump up in the air, and thank God he did, then he's probably out for the rest of the season. So Kane, so lucky that he was on the pitch, and it comes down to a potential bias, because Harry Kane, obviously golden boy, England captain. There's a lot of there's a lot of sway for him because he is there, and because of how influential he is for the country, and it's so infuriating. So Kane staying on the pitch, ridiculous decision, should have been sent off. Everyone said it's a red card. Every pundit, journalist, even some referees have come out and said it should have been a red card. But whatever, it's a poor call, and hopefully that will come back for us some day down in the season. But then moving on from that, the second terrible decision in that half. So Jota got the equalizer. We made it to 1-1. And then moments later, so whenever we get a goal, as any team, whenever they get a goal, you have that natural reaction. You're motivated. You got that buzz and that adrenaline, and you look like you're going to score again. And oppositely, on the opposite side, the defending team, they obviously cower a little bit and look a bit frightened. So we went up. Jota was in the penalty area. I think Mane slid him in, and just as he was about to shoot, Emerson just blatantly barges into him. Like Kane, he's coming in like at 100 miles an hour and doesn't look at the ball, doesn't look at the man, gets nowhere near the ball, just simply puts his elbow into Jota. Straightforward penalty every day of the week. Again, referees make a terrible, terrible call. And it's followed on now for the last few weeks, as I mentioned earlier. And in other games we've seen in previous matches, Newcastle namely, I think they... In the last two games, they both should have. In the last 2 or 3 games, they both should have had penalties that should have been given and should have not been given. I think there was one against Leicester where James Maddison went down far too easily. Referee gave the penalty, and then against Man City, whilst it probably wouldn't have mattered. Man City were way better. But Newcastle, they should have been given a spot kick. Ederson came flying out, got literally nowhere near the ball, pretty much performed a rugby tackle, and again the referee decided not to give it because I think they thought Cancelo got the was going to clear it first. But that doesn't matter. He still takes him out, as plain as day. So really infuriating from the referees, but. Water is wet, and what can you do? We're just going to try and accept it and move on, and hopefully that they eventually fix these decisions, because it is really infuriating. And right now I'd much rather be talking about the game and rather than the refereeing decisions, and that's all we want. So hopefully they fix it and maybe some common sense comes to light. But yeah, going in at halftime, 1-1, not a bad half. Well, in terms of the spectacle, brilliant half. It was end to end, so many chances, and in fact, I forgot to even mention. I think Spurs could have probably and maybe should have been 2 or 3 up. I think that Dele Alli had an unbelievable chance. It was a brilliant save from Maddison. Shouldn't have saved it, but that's the kind of keeper he is. He's absolutely fantastic. And then Son, I think he put one wide as well. So. Could have gone worse, could have gone better, and we're going to halftime being level, and then second half, kind of passed by a little bit. They were still attacking, still had good chances. That one from Dele Alli and Harry Kane. I still don't know how Alisson gets there, but that's why we pay the bucks, and that's why he helped us win the Champions League and Premier League because of brilliant decisions like that. And then going up the other end, I think it was literally right after that incident. The Spurs should have went 2-1 up, and then we go up the other end, and then Robertson and Trent combining for the second goal. Brilliant ball in from Trent. He literally volleys it in the 6-yard box, and Robbo on hand taps it into heads it into an empty net, and we go 2-1 up. But it was the kind of match where you felt, okay, we're 2-1 up, great, we're looking good. 20 minutes away from a really, really important victory, and we would have stayed within, I think, a point of Man City. But you knew that 2-1 was not going to be the final score, and we had to get another goal to really cement the victory. But credit to Spurs, they came back again, and Harry Winks, I mentioned earlier, had a really good game. Probably his best in a while, and probably the best since Pochettino was still at the club. Great ball for Son. He bent it beautifully around Joel Matip, and. I think Alisson had Alisson. Obviously, it was an error for him, but I'm not gonna complain too much because he was brilliant in the match overall. For some of the saves, because without those saves he made, we would lose that game easily. And then Son, credit to him, he gets there first and taps it into an empty net. And 2-2. It was the kind of match where it was befitting of that scoreline. It was brilliant. It was end to end. There was so much action. And it could have been 3-3, 4-4, or even more. But two goals each, and then 15 minutes to go. Who knows which way it's going to go? And then Robertson, we all know what a stupid mistake he made. He owned up, which is fair play to him. Everyone on the ground knew it. Everyone on the Liverpool side knew it. And then that was the third major incident that went in that game. So I think he just simply lost his head. A moment of madness. And it was his first red card since joining Liverpool, and like I said, he's been unbelievable for us. And in that game, quite specifically, goal and an assist. So without him, we don't get those 2 goals. So I'm not going to be annoyed about him or complaining too much. And that's basically couple of weeks off for him now, so he'll be able to rest and recover. And then I think he'll be back for the league game against Chelsea. I think that's on the 2nd of Jan. So whatever, we'll move on. And again, when you're down to 10 men and you have 10-15 minutes to go, you probably take a point, and in the end, I think a point is okay. Of course, we drop a few points in the league title race, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's a terrible blow. We're only 3 points behind Man City. Still a long way to go, and of course they're looking unbelievable right now. I can't see a fault in them, but on the other hand, I said the same thing about Chelsea a couple of weeks ago, and all it takes is a couple of injuries to key players, and then that's it. City lose like João Cancelo, who's been unplayable for them this season. Ruben Diaz, of course, is their number 1 defender. They could potentially lose Edison, Kyle Walker, any one of those defenders, and it's a big drop off. Maybe not so much going up front, given how much depth they have in that position, but definitely defensively, if they lose like 1 or 2 names, it could definitely give us a bit of hope, and potentially screw up their season a little bit. So Tottenham game, absolutely unbelievable, great game of football. And then given with everything that's gone on in football over the last few weeks, with all the fixtures that's been called off, it was definitely one that we needed. Both as Liverpool and Tottenham fans, and both for the neutral as well, because it's not been nice. Of course, we all want to see football go on. We all want to see full grounds and players fit and healthy and deliver these kind of games. But of course, if it can't happen, it can't happen. But I'm glad this one happened, and it definitely lifted the mood around the ground, and in our society, really. So great game. We'll move on. Leeds, I think, we got cup action this week on Wednesday against Leicester. I'm not sure. Well, again, we don't know whether that game will go ahead. Again, we'll talk about that topic a bit later, but hopefully it will. And then, a chance for us to make the semis of the League Cup, and then Leeds on Boxing Day on Sunday. So still lots to play for, lots of games to get through, and obviously what is a very testing period. But hopefully we come out with as many wins as possible. But moving on from that, so of course the 2 players who were heavily involved in that Tottenham game in both goals, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Andy Robertson. And as you can see in the little bar below, are they as good as Cafu and Roberto Carlos? Now, I wouldn't want ordinarily compare them to the greatest fullbacks in history, but I kind of had no choice to talk about it. But after Gary Neville on Sky Sports, he was commentating on the game, and he basically made that reference. I think at the time he said, I can't remember the exact quote, but he talked about Cafu and Roberto Carlos kind of revolutionizing the right back and left back role. When they came onto the scene, we had so many players like that who came on thereafter and was so influential going forward. We had Philipp Lahm, who was unbelievable for Bayern Munich and Germany, Dani Alves for Barcelona and Brazil, Marcelo for Real Madrid, and now you see so many fullbacks who are, if you have a team that don't have attacking fullbacks, you just can't have as much success. There's so many unbelievable fullbacks coming through right now. Those 2 namely. And there's of course Alphonso Davies at Bayern Munich. You saw in the Euros, I think Spinazzola, his name is. He was unbelievable before he got that injury towards the end of the tournament. And then for Chelsea as well, we see how reliant they are on their fullbacks. I think there was a period when Lukaku was injured, Reece James and Ben Chilwell were their top goal scorers. So clearly shows the impact of that position in teams. And whilst I'm I think all Liverpool fans were flattered to hear that comment from Neville, comparing our fullbacks to Cafu and Roberto Carlos. I think we're still a while away from those 2 reaching to that level. Roberto Carlos and Cafu both winning the World Cup. The biggest thing you can win in club football. In football, full stop. And then for clubs as well, they won multiple Champions Leagues, league titles, the longevity of their careers as well. So to be in that conversation is obviously a great honor, but they're not there yet. And with that said, though, given that the importance they have on this Liverpool team, I think there was a stat from Sunday where when Robertson put the ball in for Jota, that was the 80th assist that those two had combined in the last, I think since 2017, I want to say. So quite ridiculous numbers, 80 assists over 4 years, 20 assists a season. That's absolutely ridiculous. And now excluding goals, Trent obviously he's definitely got an eye for goal now. Robbo, he's picked up a couple of goals in the last few seasons. So the influence that they have and the importance that they have on this Liverpool team and their age as well, which is quite important. I think Robertson's now coming towards the peak of it in his career. I think he's 27 or 28, but Trent Alexander-Arnold, he's still 23 or 24. So when he gets into that age, we're going to be talking ridiculous numbers. We could be talking, maybe 20 assists him alone a season, and maybe just in the Premier League as well. So two very, very special talents. We none of us can deny that. And long may this form and this brilliant quality from left and right back continue. And then on the next subject, so we've obviously got the latest COVID issues with the Premier League that's affecting all of us. Of course, I mentioned that earlier about some of the postponed games. And so from their statement today, I think there was a meeting with the organization and 20 board members from the clubs. And basically what the takeaway from that meeting was that it's going to carry on as it is. So if players can field a starting 11 and 3 subs, then they must continue. There were, of course, a couple of contingencies in place. So, some of the prerequisites for fielding an 11 and having 3 subs is that, you need to have players who have got Premier League experience. So, you can't just draft in 14 players who are all from the under 20s and under 18s. So they are a bit lenient in that aspect. So, if a player's played like 5 Premier League games, then, they can be included in a match day squad. And as far as I'm aware, I think I'm quite happy about it because not having any football will be terrible, and in the period that we're in, it's so traditional for Premier League. Across Europe now, pretty much all the leagues suspend for a couple of weeks over the Christmas and New Year. But for us, we absolutely love it. The Boxing Day fixtures are an absolute tradition, and the New Year's Day fixtures, of course, are another one for us. And in the period that we're in, we absolutely love it. So it is inevitable that more games will be called off. Who knows whether the games on Tuesday and Wednesday in the League Cup go ahead. Hopefully they do. But again, we don't know. And then the same again this weekend for the Boxing Day fixtures. I'm almost certain there's going to be some games that'll be called off. But we just have to keep on going and keep on playing. And I think it's probably the best way as well, because if you keep on postponing fixtures, how are you going to eventually play all of them towards the end of the season? And when you've got things coming up as well, like AFCON, FA Cup as well, of course, is coming up soon. It becomes difficult if you postpone games and then look to rearrange them. So keep on playing, keep on going. Obviously, there's so much testing going on in the Premier League, so players are being as safe as they possibly can, and of course having the best care to ensure that they keep on playing. So fingers crossed. COVID cases are, of course, they're basically out of control right now in the country. But hopefully, for the Premier League players' sake, they're keeping as safe as possible and keeping fit, because we all love football in this country and we all absolutely need it. And then just lastly, wrapping up. So we've of course got the African Nations, which is still set to continue. But, there's been so many rumors lately about its possible cancellation. I think there was a couple of articles I wrote for TalkSport in the last week or so about, the safety concerns in the host nation of Cameroon, about the fact that their country is as one of the lowest rates of vaccinations in the country. And the testing that they do on people who have COVID, apparently they don't have many cases a day. I think apparently it's like 10,000 cases a day in Cameroon, the host nation. But that's because they don't do as much testing as we do in this country and as others do in Europe. So it clearly doesn't bode well. So if they were to do the amount of testing that we currently do, they probably have as many cases as ours. And if you look at their vaccination numbers, they're absolutely nowhere near as they are in this country and across Europe. So, the more that it rumbles on, the more, that I think that it could potentially get cancelled. And obviously as much as I don't want it to get cancelled, because I know a lot of people don't like Africa Cup of Nations, if you're obviously a Premier League or any kind of European fan, you got to understand that it's still a massive tournament, for the continent and for those countries. They absolutely love football just as much as we do. They need football both for for their entertainment and their livelihood, and for their economy as well. Football brings so much money to countries. So whilst I hope that it doesn't get cancelled, I think a postponement again is on the cards. And at the same time as well, on the flip side, I still don't understand why they hold it in January. It's completely disruptive for everyone, for clubs, for managers, for countries. So hosting it in summer, which they did, I think, a couple of years ago. I think it was in 2019. They moved it from January to the summer, and no problems at all. Have your players over in the summer, and compete in the tournament. So the possibilities of the African nations being postponed again are quite likely, and obviously, hopefully, will go ahead, because not having Salah, Mane, Naby Keita in that period will be very testing for us, and with other things going on with COVID, we will need those players not only now for extra depth and extra quality, but now just in case if other players get COVID, we'll need them to fill in the void. But anyways, that's everything we've got for today. So covered a lot of good stuff, a lot of entertaining and interesting news that's gone on in football and with Liverpool over the last week or so. And given that this will be our last show before Christmas, so from everyone here at Undiluted Media, we all wish you a very happy and safe Christmas. Hopefully, you all have a wonderful day. And we'll be back sometime next week to probably recap the Leeds game and talk about what else will be going on. So take care, everyone. Have a lovely Christmas, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.